So I would assume that there is no such study that shows that men are women.
We only sequenced the human genome fully in 2004. How sure are you that these individuals aren't realizing their identities through genetics and not... I'm sorry?
Go ahead, sorry.
Aren't realizing their identities through genetics and not sociology. Research has shown in a large group of homosexuals, 25% of them shared similar genetic markers. Would you say there is a case to be made between social taboos like homosexuality and transgenderism and genetics? And if there were a study that showed a correlation, would you change your views on those topics?
Well, I mean, if there is a study that so I would assume that there is no such study that shows that men are women or that men can become women. Okay, if there's a study showing a genetic correlation with gender dysphoria, I would assume that there's a basis for that. Virtually all human behavior, literally almost all of it, is a combination of genetics and environment. I mean, that is like the broadest possible statement that you can make about human behavior and genetics. And when you talk about, for example, the human genome study, well, what it said about, for example, the possibility of a gay gene is there is no gay gene. What it suggests is there are risk-seeking genes that have heavy correlation with, for example, more alternative more alternative sexual tendencies. Okay, but there's no such thing as a quote-unquote gay gene that is 100% dispositive where you find it and now you know this person is going to be gay, right? I mean, that is according to the human genome study that you're talking about here. So if I were to find a study that were to suggest that gender dysphoria exists in a certain percentage of the population because of genetics, would that shock me? No. I mean, I would assume that is the case like right now without a study. What would shock me is if I found that men were women. That would be kind of a surprise. And I assume that there's no genetic study that could make that case.
What if there were genetics that made somebody more likely to be gay without the social structures around them? If we could find genetic markers that made an individual more likely to be gay?
Well, I mean, again, I think we're kind of talking across purposes here. I'm acknowledging that there are probably genetic influences that make people more likely to behave in certain ways on sex and on everything else. I'm also suggesting that the identification change from 0.8% of the population LGBT for people born before 1946 to 21% of the population for people born between 1997 and 2003 is not the result of a massive genetic bottleneck that occurred in 50 years in Western civilization. That it's a result of societal trends. And there is a trendiness to certain behavior. There's a trendiness to identifying in a certain way. It's happened before. It'll happen again, I'm sure. Social contagions are a thing. Do I think that it is just that society for thousands of years has been so repressive that fully 1/5 of the population was LGBT? And until this very moment, we just didn't know it, genetically speaking, and I have serious doubts that is the case.